So this was a great return on investment.
Kids are horny and dumb.
Welcome to Then You Ruined It, a podcast where two dorks try not to make a simple conversation weird and fail every time.
Over the weekend, I got a chance to hang out with one of my high school friends, and we went and saw Whose Line Is It Anyway? Whose Live Is It Anyway? Which is Whose Line Is It Anyway? Done live. So it was a great time. It was very fun. But it got me just back in the high school mindset. You know, when you hang out with your friends from high school, you start thinking like you did when you were in high school and about the things you did when you were in high school. So I'm going to tell a story about Jell-O wrestling.
Sweet. I don't know how we got there, but awesome.
Well, because it's a thing I did in high school.
Okay. I'm fine with that. I'm just like, it's like, so you know, I was thinking about, backpacking through Europe. I was thinking about the glory of God's splendor. So now I'm going to talk about lesbians. It's like, okay. That is not where I thought we were going, but sure, I'll listen. I'm not saying Jell-O wrestling has to be about lesbians. I'm just saying the two things are glorious in my eyes. And I will listen to either one readily.
See, I thought you'd still have too much bitterness to half of those things, but...
No, absolutely not. That was...
Nothing could ruin hiking for you.
No, I'm not going to say it. Correct. Do go on about Jell-O wrestling.
Okay. So, when I was in high school... a girl that I knew was putting on a big party. She wanted to have like the big classic party in the backyard. Because in teenage high school movies, there's always a big party somewhere where there's the entire school getting together and people are doing cannonballs off the house into the pool and...
There's big old kegs being tapped everywhere.
Yeah, but this was Idaho and none of us were drinking and...
Yeah, big barrels of potatoes?
Yeah, we just threw... That was the typical Idaho party. We would just make a bunch of mashed potatoes and set them up on a slip and slide.
Can you go down the Crocodile Mile with like bacon and chives in your hands and you jump in and just make a delicious mashed potato bar when you get down there? And oh, I'm hungry now. Sorry.
Nothing makes you hungry like teenager flavored potatoes.
Not now, no. But back to the teenager. I mean, that's the thing I could have gone for. Might have got me to go to more parties.
So she had to decide, like, how was she going to make this party the hit thing to go to that you could get, like, half the school to show up to. And her great idea, and I will agree that it was a great idea because it worked, was to put Jell-O wrestling there. Which got me so intrigued, and everyone else. There were probably, most parties I went to, there were maybe 20 kids at. This one easily had 200. So this was a great return on investment.
Kids are horny and dumb.
Yeah. Like we had no idea what Jell-O wrestling even was. Like we all thought we knew what it was, and like we were making plans. Like, okay, you're gonna do it. Like we were committing people to take part in the Jell-O wrestling, and what they were committed to wearing while doing it. This was all very, very important to us at the time. This was so important to me that I lied to one of my best friends and didn't go to her birthday because I was going to this party instead.
I mean, what a terrible friend to make you make that choice.
Exactly.
That friend should have canceled their birthday party. Did they go to the same school?
Yeah. She knew about this party.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Cancel that party and go to the other party.
I know.
This is bigger than you.
Exactly, and it'd been going on longer. She's like, you're just doing this because there's Jell-O wrestling. I'm like, no, I promised her like 3 weeks ago I'd go. And also, yes, because there's going to be Jell-O wrestling. What are we going to do at your place? Watch Three Amigos again? I mean, it's a great movie,
come on now. Come on. Let's not besmirch. That would be a real tough choice for me. Jell-O wrestling, Three Amigos. It's like, can I have those two things at once, please? No, I can't. I cannot deny the triumvirate of Short, Martin, and Chase.
So we get there, and like I said, everyone's there, and here's the thing, kids. To any teenagers suckered into listening to this, most parties suck. They're just not anything like they look like in the movies. It's just like, your same friends talking about the same things you always do, listening to music with other circles of kids doing the same thing around. So, don't feel like you're missing out too much just because it's you and your friends hanging out again. That's the same thing. But so for this one, we're all in different groups. Everyone's just like chatting, whatever. And it's like, I don't know half these kids. At least I don't know them. I knew everyone's names and faces because it wasn't that big a school. But everyone was there for one purpose only. And we all had things kind of built up in our minds of what it was going to be like. Because, Jell-O wrestling, this is tantalizing. This is interesting. Like, our young minds are a Twitter with anticipation. And then she's like, okay, we're going to do it. And so she spread out this big, huge tarp in her backyard, and a bunch of us dumped. She made 2 kiddie pools worth of Jell-O, and we just dumped them on the tarp. And she's like, all right, who wants to go first? And we're like, oh, wait, we actually have to participate in this. What do we do? And so people would start pairing off and wrestling, and we're like, this is a lot less sexual than we thought it was going to be.
Guys, I don't have a boner. Do you have a boner? I don't have a boner. Check, Chad. No, Chad doesn't have a boner. Why don't we have boners?
And Chad always has a boner. This doesn't make any sense.
He's always rubbing something.
So after the initial realization that this wasn't, just because we were doing the activity from Porky's doesn't mean Porky's is going to happen. Not that Porky's has. Anyway, you know what I mean.
Yes.
And so then we decided, okay, we're just going to embrace this for what it is. And then we realized this is hilarious because it's people trying to wrestle on a slippery tarp covered in Jell-O. It became amazing. And it became just like, it was one of the first times for, I think, a lot of us where we realized that if you just let go of trying to be cool for the kids at school and just be silly and flop around in Jell-O, you can have a great time. We were chanting, like people started taking bets on different wrestlers. Everyone kind of turned, and there was going to be a time where I was wrestling this kid. I don't even remember who it was, but I got him in like a headlock here, and I'm like, I'm going to DDT this guy, just like my hero, Jake the Snake.
Oh, God, no.
So I start leaning back. I'm like, wait a second. That will kill him. I need to not do that. And so I stopped, and he instantly picked me up and slammed me down into the Jell-O. I'm like, oh, you're lucky I decided not to murder you. And then we wrestled more. But it was fun. And we all smelled like cherry. And
then I got a boner.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, the cherry did it.
I found my thing. It's cherry. So did you have any defining silly moments like that where you expected one thing, found another, and were better for it?
I mean, I'm sure I did, but I can't think of anything that really topped that. I will go back to, I thought part of the Jell-O wrestling was you had something to contain it. Like every time I've seen it on on wrestling, like when they would do it, or like mud wrestling or whatever, or I've seen it in a movie, like in Old School or whatever, they do it in, like you said, they had the pool and then they dump the pool out. I'm like, no, that's where you failed. Aren't you supposed to do it in the pool? Like it is, so the Jell-O stays contained and doesn't just slide all over the place? Like,
well, but 2 teenagers can't wrestle in a kiddie pool. Like that's just not enough room.
Well,
so,
that's where the person planning the party failed. Like it needed to be like all in one bigger pool. Like, I'm not asking you to get like a full pool, like in-ground pool or anything like that, but get a bigger one and take responsibility for this thing. So.
I mean, if you want it to be like, yes, that is the traditional thing. So if she was trying to plan a bikini summer style topless-a-thon, then yeah, she failed. But if she was planning to have something that was a hoot and a holler with a bunch of her high school friends and where no one felt violated, everything was fine. Everything was perfectly, like I told my parents about it afterwards because it was so non-sexual.
Dad, I'm really surprised about I didn't get a boner. It's like, really, son? I'm surprised. I'm kind of getting a chubby just listening to you talk about it. I know, right? You'd think you would, but I was fine.
No, it was just, yeah. And it was a really big tarp, and yeah, Jell-O all over the place, but it's going to get all over the place. And we just slide it around.
We did several events with the youth at our church that were on massive tarps. Like they spread out like trash bags and just spread out over a huge area and then sprayed tons of like kiddie pools full of shaving cream. And let me tell you, when shaving cream hits a tarp like that, oh my God, do you fly. And we had broken toes. We had concussions. These are all adults, by the way. And so that's the closest I can think of to like tarp and Jell-O. I'm like, that could have been like deadly dangerous if you had like the right ground or the wrong ground.
Yeah, for sure. That could be a problem.
my mind goes back to a situation that I was not directly involved in, and I'm so angry that I wasn't, because I feel like it would have been like one of my formative high school experiences. We grouped off in, I think it was an English class. Yeah, it was an English class, because we were supposed to be recreating one of the Canterbury tales, which I will admit right here and now, I never read. I didn't read any of the tales. I have no idea what they are to this day. I participated in one. I did recreate one with like 3 other people that was like the super, I think it was probably the girlfriend that would become my fiance later on. So I probably did it for, her. So I did the boring one because she was into boring stuff. So it's gotta have meaning behind it. It's like, yeah, but this group is going to do something way cooler. And it's all my friends too. So can I go with them, please?
They're doing it as Jedi.
No. So what they did was they decided to recreate some again, didn't read the story, so I don't know how it actually goes, but they did like an epic battle out at somebody's farm, and they filled like that. Well, they didn't fill. It was like the pig pit. They just got it soaking wet, so it was a mud, and there's just big mud war, and it was like 15 to 20 guys and girls. Like the rest of the class basically all did this thing, and they just had a giant mud wrestling fight, and they filmed it, and it looked so disgusting and amazing, and I am still to this day upset that I didn't join that instead of doing whatever lame thing I did. So as you're describing it, I'm just thinking of like the video that they showed of that. I'm just like, none of this feels legal. Like this all feels like they're going to jail.
For wrestling in the mud? Like, what kind of protected little sheltered wuss life did you lead?
Again, you're teens, so the sexual factor is up there for at least somebody in that crowd. I can guarantee you, because one of them was my friend. he was a horny little dude.
But okay, but it wasn't guys wrestling girls, right? It was.
I mean, it was everybody. They weren't really wrestling. They were supposed to be recreating a fight. But like one of my other friends, who gets way too into like physical activity and fighting. He thinks himself a wrestler, much like yourself. Tried to chokeslam another one of our friends onto a mat one time and broke his toe. I don't know how he broke his toe, but he did. So yeah, he slipped and fell at one point, and like I think he may have gotten concussed. I'm not sure, but they were like he was laying down on the ground for a while. We just like left him there while we kept fighting around him. So, but it's one of those like outside school things. It's like this is the moments that we really remember. That is one thing the movies do get. It's like, oh man, this is the night you're going to remember. It's like, okay, yeah, the times I do remember are definitely outside school. Mm-hmm. Most of them are not positive, so I don't want to remember them. I was thinking of one just like yesterday for some reason, just popped into my head. I'm like, man, I'm never going to forget that. That really sucked.
What was it? Podcast.
So I was on a baseball team with all the popular kids, and I think we went to Pizza Hut after the game one week, and so I went with those kids and not my parents because they didn't go. So I went with them, and we had pizza and everything, and all these guys were not necessarily bullies, but they were definitely mean to me, and they were not being nice. And I remember like sitting, you're gonna feel bad because you're gonna feel terrible about me having to tell this story. I won't cry. Don't let me see you cry. But I remember like sitting.
Let me see you cry.
I think I was in the passenger seat with one of the kids' dads, and the other kids were in the back. And again, they were just ragging on me for whatever, and just they were always terrible to me in school, especially one of the guys. He's just a like career bully basically. And I remember like sitting there in the van, like just my dad, like when's my dad gonna get here? When's my dad gonna get here? I'm just like crying, and like as soon as he arrived, just like running out of that car and be like, I never want to go back there again. So that moment for some reason is like stuck in my brain, and I just like everything about that night is like vivid to me, and I'm like, when am I going to forget that? Like that sucked. Like that was one of the worst nights of my life. When is that going to finally leave my brain? Get to remember a happy thing. Oh, that's right, because I didn't get to go mud wrestling, so I have to remember being bullied until I cried in front of other boys instead. Thanks a lot.
Yeah,
dumb lesbian girlfriend who made me do dumb things.
Okay,
that's who I'll blame this on.
Yeah. Let's put our anger the right place. So I'm guessing you never kicked your bullies in the head, did you?
No, I never like got comeuppance on them. I mean, I'm living a happy life here, many, many miles away from where they probably live. Or some of them, yeah, I became friends with by the end of high school because it's like, why? Like, why are we doing what? Why? It doesn't matter. So yeah, I'm sure they're fine now, and there'd be no ill will. But at the time, yeah, it was definitely you make my life much worse, and I wish that weren't the case.
So, I don't know if this is the other side of that. This is, of the multitude of high school experiences, this is the one where I'm still the least sure how I should feel about this. So we had open campus for lunch, which means we could go anywhere we wanted for lunch, which meant it was a absolute stampede of old cars trying to get to McDonald's every day at lunchtime.
Yep. Same. That's why people would cut before lunch and to get there first.
Yep.
When I became one of those kids, I started getting bad grades, and I was like, oh, I shouldn't do that anymore.
Well, me and my friends always just went to Winco, which is the cheap grocery store. This is what I lived on for lunch in high school. I would get a box of fudge rounds and a 2-liter of Surge, and I would eat that every day for 3 years. I don't know why I'm alive. Anyway, so it was one of those days, and we're all running out to our cars. There was a Coca-Cola truck out there, just like a pickup truck all painted with Coca-Cola. And it was like some dude like, hey, kids, come get a Coke. And we're like, okay. The whole back of the truck was filled with ice and Cokes, and he just handed out bottles of Coke. And we're like, this is amazing. High school's the best. High fives all around. And so we were driving down the hill to go get food. And we were, I don't know how to put this. We were the poor kids. Well, I went to the richer high school, and I was in the poor end of that. So there were definitely people much poorer than me in my town, but they were all at a different school. It wasn't a big deal that we were poor. It was a big deal that some kids were rich and were very in our face about it. There was one kid whose dad bought him a convertible and would always like show it off and be all snotty about it. So we were driving down, and we saw him in his convertible, and he was kind of sneering. And so we shook up our Cokes and threw them into his car and drove away as they exploded all over his nice Porsche or Mustang or whatever it was. You're smiling, so it can't be that bad of a thing I did.
I mean, it's a pretty bad thing, but also I'm picturing like, movie villain quality dickhead here. So
yeah,
he totally had it coming.
Yeah, picture the bad guy in any kid movie. And that's probably this kid. He was rich. He has to be bad, right?
Definitely. No question.
So yeah, like now, like, man, if someone threw a Coke in my car, I'd be so pissed. But at the end of the day, like, I'd also still be alive. Like, it's not good. Like, after I cleaned it up, it has no further impact on my life. So I really, like, this is a real moral quandary for me. I don't know how to feel about high school Steve shaking up a Coke and throwing it into this kid's car. Because I was the second one. Somebody else did it first. The first person who does it, that could be an outlier. It's the second person who decides that's a group activity. And I was that second person.
I mean, you were definitely in the wrong, but you're also a kid, and kids do stupid stuff when they're kids. You should do stupid stuff when you're kids. That's when you should do it. You should feel humbled by the fact that you know it was wrong and you would never do it again, but also totally righteous that you did in the first place.
Yeah, in the movie, I'm the good guy. I'm the radical kid, and goobers never say fall down.
And you start to feel sorry for the guy, and it's like, oh man, you see him cleaning his car. But then, like, the next scene, he actually, like, threatens to kill somebody. And it's like, he pulls out a knife on him or something. It's like, oh no, he's still the villain.
Yeah.
Steve was totally in the right. I knew it.
Or, like, earlier in the thing, he, like, slaps a girl on the butt, or, like, looks up the teacher's dress or something. Like, he's got to do something that's worse. Something that affects another human. Then you can throw Coke in their car. So this is the other lesson, kids. If you see someone do something that affects another human, you can throw a soda in their car.
I was trying to think of something pithy or clever to say about that, but sure. Yeah, that's a good lesson. I'll teach my kids based on that. Look for the villain and throw soda at them.
Hey, we're all in a movie, but we all get to decide what character we are. We all decide our arc.
That'll do it for this episode. Boy, I sure did ruin that. If you still need more, head on over to Twitter. I am at Idahobo, and Jason is at the Jason Sigler. We also do a webcomics review podcast called Digital Strips.